Emily Ray here. Just wanted to welcome you to week 3 and to jump right into taking a look at the Real Deal Taco sites that you submitted over the week. To set this up, how it's going to go is I have queued up all of your sites in my browser window. I am going to review all of the sites that were submitted on Sunday night. And I haven't taken a look at them yet, except to check to see if they were there and to see that they would load into my browser window. And what I am doing here on this recording is to give you my first impression. And I'm looking for things that make me go, So these would be disconnects. These would be an interruption of some kind in my user experience. So, generally you want to have a seamless experience when you visit a website. You don't want anything to be confusing or not intuitive. So, what I'm recording here is my first impression of your sites and also a little bit of positive, productive feedback for moving these sites to their next best place in your week 4 revision. So, speaking of that week 4 revision, if you haven't taken a look at the assignment description yet, I want you to do that now, and then to take a few screenshots of your site as it exists before you start to make revisions. So that assignment in week 4 asks you to provide some before and after screenshots. So a lot of times I have students who just go ahead and start the revision and don't realize that the assignment down the road calls for that snapshot of the earlier look. So pause the video and go do that real quick and come back and join us. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit this slideshow and I'm going to go over to where we have the sites all queued up. So spoiler alert here, these are all Real Deal Taco sites, so hang with me all the way to the end. The cool thing is that even though we're going to take a look at 5 different sites, you're going to see 5 very different takes on how to design a solution for the Real Deal Taco scenario. So first up, we have a site here. Looking at the information that's available to me above the fold, I've got a navigational options of home, member deals, menu, about us, testimonials. We've got some contact info and then some social media links. As I'm hovering over them, I can see that they are in fact linking out to the various Real Deal Tacos locations around the web, and I can see that in the bottom left hand corner of the screen when I can get a little bit of a preview link there. I've got a cart here, so I'm curious to explore what I could put in my cart. Branding information, and then a large banner image. So my first impression is that like the banner image and the branding, the branding itself is pretty small. At this size, it's really hard to even read that says San Diego. It says Real Deal Tacos, but then it's repetitive and says Real Deal Tacos again here. It's nice so that we have this little bit of a tagline that says food truck specializing in fresh fish tacos, which lets the visitor know immediately what site they're on if they are in fact looking for a fish taco truck in San Diego. I'm going to scroll down the page just to see what we've got here on the home page. Delicious looking taco. We've got our tagline, and then again, welcome to Real Deal Tacos. So I would say that there's a bit of redundancy here between Real Deal Tacos, Real Deal Tacos, Real Deal Tacos. So you might want to streamline that information. I would definitely make this logo and the branding, a bit bigger, just because it's really hard to read at that size. Scrolling down, I've got the hours of operation and rotating schedules of stops. So every day of the week, this is what time they're going to be serving things. I'm hovering over all of this, and I don't see that any of this information is a link, so I'm going to continue down. See another chips and salsa. So here are the locations. We've got Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. So what I'll say is that you're really making the user do a lot of work to get the information that you kind of hint at up here. I'm having to continue to scroll through a picture, one chunk of the information, the other chunk, and what you're doing is you're putting this little bit of content right in the middle of a pretty wide space here. What I might recommend is to utilize more of a grid type organization, whereby you are, maybe you have one column here and then another column here of the information, so that we get more of a snapshot in one place. So maybe it's got this little bit of information at the top and then 2 or 3 or 4 columns of the information, so I'm not having to continue to scroll to get what is arguably the most important information that this website is offering, and that is where the truck is. So we've got news and special events. So here it just looks kind of like a headline, and then it's going into some blog posts. What I'm seeing is that we've got the blog post here, but also just a really dense paragraph of text, right? So like this information could be streamlined and broken up. Think back to that lynda.com tutorial that you watched on writing for the web, and the idea of breaking up information so that it's easily scannable, uses headings and subheadings, and then also bulleted lists. Looks like we got a few more just interesting little posts here. And again, my feedback is the same for all of these, and that is super dense paragraphs of text. How can you break this up and make this information easily scannable? If these are all events, I'd really like to have the time and the venue information, which you've got down here, just be very, very apparent and easily seen. The other thing that I'm noticing with these posts, and I'm assuming that what happened here is that basically you copied and pasted the information from the documents provided to you within the scenario, because it looks remarkably similar to the layout there, is we've got these URLs, right? So it's just a bunch of gobbledygook. It is a straight up URL, and that's not a best practice for how you're going to meaningfully title your links on a web page. So think back to the 7 deadly sins when we first started in the class, and you guys are doing a really great job in FSO of doing that. But as I continue to take a look at your work outside of there and into other places on the web, whether that be your blog or whether that be here on the Real Deal Taco site, I'm not seeing that you are adhering to that best practice. So again, we've got a larger application of the logo here. It looks a little, blurry, almost like that there's a little bit of compression or pixelization around the corners there. We've got kind of a call to action, an email sign up. We've got contact information down here, and then that fictitious business statement that I asked you guys all to put there. I'm going to scroll back up to the top and just to see if I've missed anything here in the menu. So we've got home, member deals. I clicked on that and it's taken me somewhere else. I've got a whole different page. We've got basically they're going to send a code that you can apply for. But how do I do it? How do I get that code would be my question. So a little bit of maybe needing a little bit more instruction as to how do I get the code? Is that, how do I get it when I sign up through this email subscription? If so, that's a little bit of extra information I'd like for you to provide in terms of instructions for the users. I'm going to go back to this page real quick because there was something else that caught my eye, this learn more. So I go ahead and I clicked on it, but it looks as if it's a link that is broken or takes me back to this same page. So you might want to check on that. Next up, we've got the menu. So here, I'm loving the grid type layout that we've got on this particular page. So this is kind of what I was referencing with the locations on the previous page. You've got these awesome images, you've got everything titled up, and it looks like, let's just say, I'm going to click on this Chipotle shrimp taco. It takes me here and it looks like I can order it, which is fantastic. I'm going to order 2 and then I'm going to add to cart. Oh, and it shows up in my cart, which is great. I'm going to view my cart. So here I have this and I can check it out. But so one of the things, like if we're trying to think through this scenario, I'm ordering this food online, where is the truck? Is there a window that I'm supposed to go pick it up? Thinking through the instructions that if this were a real scenario, the amount of extra content, extra instruction, extra guidance that you would have to give. Because what if this person orders it in between lunch and dinner, and it's not a time when the truck is operating? So these are things that you've added this cool feature, but haven't fully thought through how it fits within this particular scenario. So that's definitely an area that you want to revisit in the upcoming revision. So the About Us, here we have, the page is loading, a story, right? And so as I'm looking at this, I can see that it's pretty much verbatim what was provided to you in the reference documents for the scenario. And part of your job on this particular activity would be, as a web strategist, to take this content and streamline it and format it in a way that helps facilitate a user's ability to absorb this information quickly and scan it, right? Moving forward into the revision of this, I'd really like for you to take an editor's eye to this information and to think about that lynda.com writing for the web tutorial, and how can you edit this so that it provides what a user needs and also still satisfies what the business wants. The other thing is that you've center aligned all of this text. There's a great article on our DGO, MCBS DGO account that talks about why center aligning text is not a best practice. And that's because with a whole bunch of text like this, our eyes get fatigued as we end the line here and have to wrap around to a very new place each time. When there's a consistent border, it helps facilitate our eyes moving from the end of one sentence to the beginning of another. Center aligned text looks best and functions well when it is a title or kind of a short headline, so keep that in mind. And last but not least, we're going to take a look at the testimonials. And so here, I love what you've done with, putting images up there, right? So you very much personalized this, and you've given it just what's a little bit of text, some visual appeal. There's a little bit of thought process between like putting different ideas about putting your testimonials all on one page versus peppering them out through different pages on the site. If you think about it, business owners are only going to put positive reviews on their website. If I wanted to go and take a very kind of objective look at Real Deal Tacos and what clients think of it, I might go somewhere like Yelp or Google Reviews. If a review is on a business's website, most likely it's going to be favorable. And so to put all of the testimonials on one page seems maybe a bit of overkill, in as much as they're not as objective. They're probably certainly credible. I believe that people have provided these positive reviews, but who knows, there could have been negative ones weeded out. I, in my experience, have found that you get more, that people are attracted to reading these more when they are used in visually interesting ways and peppered throughout different pages on a website. But very pleased with the way that this is laid out, and think about how you might leverage this to create something visually interesting on other pages. Overall, this is a really strong site. There's a few things to think through a little bit more. There's a lot of scrolling going on here on this home page. Think about ways that you can help streamline this experience just a bit more. Certainly opportunities in terms of that cart and also streamlining text. Next up, we have another Real Deal Taco site. I'm going to say that 5 more times because we have 5 more sites. So here we have our social media, and it looks as if it is linking out to the various locations on the web where you can find Real Deal Tacos. We've got Real Deal up here. Doesn't necessarily have the full business name. We have large banner image of some delicious looking food, and then we've got the branding information down here, which is cut off just slightly on the screen. We've got our story, menus, and locations, and it looks like we've got this cool social media plugin that's pulling kind of timely, up-to-date information for these for the tweets. We've got the fictitious business statement down here, which is fantastic and much needed. We don't want to send all of the residents of San Diego searching for this fictitious food truck. But what I'll say is that for the homepage, which is your high value real estate area, on a website is the only area that you can guarantee that a user will see when they go to your URL. We're not getting a ton of information here. Our branding is kind of half cut off. We do have clear navigation. We do have these options to visit other places. But I'd like to see you maximize, potentially a little more use of this page. There's not even anything else on it. I would argue that one of the most important bits of content on this particular website is the locations where the truck can be found and when. So you might consider adding them here on the home page as part of that, maximizing that high value real estate. The other thing is we've got Real Deal up here. I understand that modern day templates and certainly what we're seeing in Wix, which is what the CMS is that you built this site on, is forcing kind of this very thin banner up here in the header for you to put logo and branding information. So you have kind of a relatively small space, and then you have been provided a logo that has a kind of very square setup, which when you're trying to fit this shape into this kind of thin header up here, you'd have to shrink it down pretty small to be able to fit it up there. So I get why you went with something text-based. I am thinking, but if you do go this route, that perhaps you should choose the same font as what we see here, or something like what's going on with this more condensed. And then match the colors a little more closely as well, because this is kind of a slightly different color than what we've got going in here that's slightly off-brand. And then the full business name, so Real Deal Tacos. And then, perhaps that you could float that logo over top of this banner image still, but make sure that, it's maybe moved up a little bit higher on the page. The other thing is that because of the busyness and detail and texture of the picture behind it, Real Deal doesn't stand out so much. It's kind of blending in and not as easily seen, so your only real recognizable brand is kind of muddied by what we see in the background. Perhaps maybe ghost this image a little bit, or I think white might, if you turn this logo white, it might stand out a little bit better, or you can do a shadow over this, but there needs to be a bit more contrast between those two elements. We've got these menu, times, and locations. We're going to jump next to our story. So Real Deal's origin. So like that little loading animation, it's like a page title. We've got a large banner image, and it's just a short, tiny bit of information. And I really like what you've done here with condensing the information, right? So you did not include all of it, you streamlined it in a meaningful way, and then just put a little, some blurbs here and there. I think that works really well and is a great example of how to do that. The center alignment of the text here, I would recommend going back to a left alignment for the reasons we discussed in the previous review. And just to kind of highlight that I do believe that this text here and this text are slightly different sized, right? So you want to be consistent from page to page in terms of what your body font and style, size, and weight is. So we've got your social media here, so that's great too. Next up, we're jumping to menus. So we've got this laid out in a very organized way. So what we see here, we've got headings, and then the menu item, and then the description and the price. All of this works really well. And I'm wondering, just because we've got all of this available space here and all of this available space over here, if maybe perhaps it would make more sense to line these up 3 across the top and have one row instead of having them kind of come down in this triangle or pyramid shape. Because that happens down here and here as well. It would just give you more space on the page and would maximize more of the available content areas that you have. It looks really nice, but I think that would be a slightly more usable layout. Next up, jumping to the locations. So just to point out that there is a little different behaviors from page to page, right? Our story had this loading animation, and so does menus, or I'm sorry, and so does locations, but menus doesn't, right? And it kind of gives us like a totally different feel. You want the experience to be pretty similar from page to page. So if you're going to do it on one, perhaps, do it on all of them. So we've got locations. Scrolling down. So we've got this great banner image, but what it does is it pushes all of the very, very important information down here further on the page, and I have to scroll to see it. And arguably, again, this is the most important information that people are looking for. This is laid out pretty well. I would say that these maps are great, and they're great visual cues. And the only thing is that I do see like a little bit of, in terms of this is one kind of thick, spaced out, stylized font that you're using. And you use it up here, and then you're using this as kind of more of a body font. So it's like, this is your title, subtitles, subheadings. So it seems like maybe this should also reflect that style. Overall, this is a very strong site. Certainly a few considerations about putting the branding in a more prevalent place and then matching the colors a little bit more closely, thinking about your contrast issues, and then perhaps the idea of floating these content bits up into a single row. But overall, very well done. Next up, Real Deal Taco site, very clean first impression. We've got kind of a very minimalist approach here. We've got clear branding information at the top. The navigation available to us is home, about, us, menu, locations, news and events, and contact. We've got some, a delicious looking banner image, very high quality. Scrolling down, we have just a little bit of information about the business. Where we can find out where the truck is, some kind of marketing information there. All of that's laid out really nicely, very easy to read. I really like the use of this decorative font as a heading, right? So you need to be very careful with decorative fonts because they are a little bit harder to read. They're best used in titles or subtitles, headings, things of that nature. And another thing to be careful with, which this designer has done a good job, is if you're using a scripted font, generally the first letter of that font, if it's capitalized, is pretty ornate. So if these were to be all caps, it would look almost unreadable because of the busyness and the curls of the script. So this designer's done a really nice job with staying away from that. One of the things that looks slightly different, it's almost as if this is just a little bit more italicized than this. It looks a little bit more upright, and I don't know if that's just my eye, and maybe it's the drop shadow, but it looks just a little bit more slanted. So this is a super fun way to do testimonials. This is something that is keeping interest. It has a little bit of dynamic movement to it. And it's visually interesting. So and it's presenting them one by one. So it's grabbing my attention by the novelty and the newness of the one that's showing up. We've got our social media, and it looks like it definitely is linking out to the various locations on the web, which is fantastic. And then the fictitious business statement down there. I'm going to scroll up, check the About Us page. So here we've got another awesome picture loading in. We've got that parallax scrolling, which is a highly used technique. And here we've got, it looks like pretty much the whole story for the Real Deal Tacos, kind of origin story. It's laid out beautifully, but what I might argue is that a busy user isn't going to have time or the desire to read a lot of this. As a web strategist, you have the opportunity to work with your client on either streamlining the information to what is essential or most important. And if the owner didn't want to do that, the opportunity there would be to lay it out in such a way that it is more easily scannable. So you do that by creating more paragraph breaks, maybe doing like a pull quote, an interesting sentence, give it a little kind of a different style. What you did here with this, the For Real, you have styled it slightly different, so it draws my attention to that in a visually interesting way. And you could do that with, any one of these sentences or quotes that you want to draw particular attention to set it apart, to break up the otherwise dense paragraph text. The page is beautiful. It's just pretty dense in terms of the content. Next up, we have the menu. All of this is laid out very beautifully. We've got just, the sections, the headings, the subheadings, the details, and we've got some, fun menu pictures over here. It looks very nice. The locations. So here we have it laid out in kind of a similar format as what we saw on the menu page. So consistent with the stylings and what we're seeing there, which is great because you want to be consistent from page to page in terms of what do your page titles look like, what do your heading 1, heading 2, subheading, paragraph text. It needs to be consistent from page to page to give that cohesive, seamless experience. We've got this kind of call to action to check out the news and events, so I'm going to do that now, or maybe I am. Trying to click on it. Doesn't look like that's linked, so that might be something to check. So news and events, and just to comment, the photography is great on this particular site. It's very well matched thematically with the business. So here we have news and events, and it looks as if we've got like these small posts. Just to note here, we've got this small heading. It seems to be floating out there. It's like we've got these blog posts, but it's not actually functioning like a blog. It's more just information that's on the page. What I'd like you to think about is the maintenance of this. Let's say you get 3 new events and you post them up. Does this page just get longer? Do you take other ones off? Because what you have here is kind of historical archival information that is great for search engine optimization, because let's just say someone Googles this Unleashed Petco surf dog competition. There is a chance that it might bring up this blog post that you've written. So what I want to encourage you to do is actually put news and events into more of a blogging type format, because as potentially a web strategist or a marketer or someone who develops content for a business, as you add more and more, what it does is it auto archives this and just puts it on another page, so you don't lose that rich content and keywords for search engines, but you're not having to constantly move the content all of the time. The other thing to note here is that this is very dense paragraph text. It looks very much like what you were provided in the content files. So again, the concepts and techniques that you're using to break content up in the bio or the About Us story is also applicable to these posts and the information that you're sharing here. People don't have a lot of time, and the more that you can do to make this information scannable or streamline it or take out the bulk, the more successful your content will be. Last but not least, we've got the Contact Us page. And we just got a simple contact form, the phone number, and we'd love to chat with you. It's a simple page. I'm wondering if it'd be possible to pull this contact form and this contact information down here in the footer so that it's available on every page of the website, and you might be able to just condense it so you don't even need this page. It's an option. Think about it. You've got your week 4 revision. The site is very strong, very clean, and well done, but certainly some opportunities to push it into an even better place. Now we've got another fun take on the Real Deal scenario. So here we've got this information. It's familiar branding, but we no longer have the Real Deal Tacos. It's down here, and in a slightly different font than what the brand is. So it looks like what this designer did was, take these pieces apart so that this would fit better up top, but in the process kind of disrupted the continuity of the brand and then the logo, and then, not having the exact font down here is a little bit off brand. I like the thought process. What about kind of taking this and doing Real Deal Taco, maybe moving this fish truck part over here and then have it say Real Deal Taco this way. It was a creative take for the design challenge that you had there, and so I encourage you to keep exploring that idea a little bit further. We've got some fun little images here of food. We've got the social media accounts. As I'm hovering over them, they don't look like they're actually linked anywhere except this Instagram, which looks like it is linking to Wix, according to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So because this is a fictitious scenario, I don't necessarily, you know, I'm not a stickler that these things have to be linked. They could just be conceptually icons placed on the page. But that being said, either link them to the Real Deal Taco locations or just have them be pictures. Because if I were to click on this and it takes me to Wix, that, you know, that is just very much a disconnect from being in this particular scenario. Another comment would be that the you know, you're not maximizing a lot of the available real estate here on the home page. We've got some brands, but again, it's broken up a little bit. We've got home, menu, locations, and blog, and then just some pictures and the social media. Again, I would say, you know, the locations and the menu offer some really great content that you could add here on the home page. If you don't want to just put the entire menu or the entire locations, you could do something similar to what we saw here on this home page, which is, you know, see where we are today, or, you know, check out our featured taco. That way it serves as a little bit of a, you know, a teaser or a lead in to these other more in-depth pages. So we've got our story. So this web strategist has taken and streamlined the information quite a bit, but has put it in this very kind of blocky, spaced out text, which is attractive for headings and subheadings, but difficult to read in this kind of square justified, you know, position. So it almost looks like one of those word searches where I'm trying to, you know, find a word here and I'm going to circle the letters. I like what you've done with adding a little bit of color to kind of pop out these interesting portions of this text, but really what needs to happen is that the font needs to be something a bit more traditional and easily read, because it is a bunch of text. You know, there should be paragraph breaks in here between the different sections to add more flow. I love what you did with the color, and if you want to use this font and color for headings and subheadings or pull quotes, that would work. But as is, it has, you know, a few issues there. Jumping next to the menu, so here we've got everything lined up really nicely. It's formatted well. I'm curious about why there's so much space over here, right? So like why all of this empty space? Why is the line wrapping stopping like right about there? Just curious about that. And again, the same, you know, the same feedback applies. This text is fun, but it's fun for a heading or subheading, but not for the bulk of text. Definitely something you're going to want to update with, you know, text that's a little bit easier to read, and certainly not all caps all the time. Under locations, so here this is what we were talking about on the other page. You've used a decorative font, but you've used it in all caps, and because of that, it makes this very difficult to read. I didn't see that same issue over here on the menu page. Jumping back, maybe. I feel like maybe this is frozen now. Not sure what's going on. Menu? No? I'm going to refresh the page. Hold tight with me. Very strange, and it's not letting me go anywhere else. Okay, so what's happening is you've done something here on the locations page that has disabled your menu on every one of these. These aren't linked anymore, but this one is, so it takes us off. And so notice here, you use this decorative font again, and it looks great because you used with you know, title case. So you've just capitalized like the first letter, and it reads very easy. But under locations, when you've all caps it, it makes it very difficult to read. So we've got all of the locations here. You might consider adding a map. Again, the same feedback applies for the usefulness of this particular blocky text. You're going to want to go with something a bit more readable. Under blog, so here we have, and this is the kind of text I'm talking about. When I say a bit more readable, that's what I mean. So what I'll say about this is, you know, similar to the feedback I provided on the previous site, You have just pasted all this information in here, but like blog posts, but not an actual blog type functionality or feature page. And for all the reasons that I talked about in the previous review, I'd like for you to, in the week 4 revision, go ahead and place this information into an actual blog. The white text looks great in terms of the contrast over top of the blue, but this dark gray blends in too much with the background. And last but not least, this is a bunch of dense paragraph text. You did a nice job back here on the Our Story page of kind of streamlining this information. Do the same with these posts as well. Kind of noticeably absent from your site are images, right? So we don't have any images here with the blog posts, no images or maps here with that, no images on the menu page, and again, the locations page has that navigation issue. And no pictures here. So there's certainly an opportunity during the next go around for revisions to add more imagery to the site. Overall, it's very strong, and you know, I encourage you to continue to evolve it in the ways that we've discussed here in this review. And then last but not least, guess what? Real Deal Taco site. You knew it was coming. I said I had 5, and this is 5 of 5. But hasn't it been neat, right, to see the unique takes of you know, each web strategist on this project? So looking here at this last site, we have the Real Deal Taco logo. We've got Real Deal Tacos in text here. We've got navigation available to us, home menu, locations, and blog. And then we've got, again, the logo and the, we've got the tagline. A little bit of information. Real Deal Tacos is a mobile food truck, kind of lets people know about the goal of the company. We've got that fictitious business statement down there, which is great. And the social media, which is in fact still linked to all of your Wix accounts, right? So either link this to the links that were provided for Real Deal Tacos, or just leave them images, because if I were to click on this and it takes me to Wix, then that's a real disconnect. What I'll say about your homepage is that there's a lot of redundancy between Real Deal Tacos, and Real Deal Tacos, and Real Deal Tacos. Of course, it's important to represent the brand, but there's a little bit too much going on in this one window here. So if you are hunting for things to put on your homepage, if you don't think you have enough content, again, you know, maybe it's a featured taco of the day, or where we located today, or the testimonials, or, you know, perhaps it is short blurbs about each. You know, maybe it's an entry to the menu, an entry to the About Us. Definitely lots of different takes that you can go on there. So, you know, if you're removing this particular piece, you know, you're going to need to fill this space with something, and there are a lot of available options. Certainly, you've seen many different examples of how that can be done on the sites that we've reviewed previously. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the menu. So here we have the starters and some images. When I'm looking at this, I recognize it immediately as a screenshot of the menu that was provided to you. This is not a best practice for a number of reasons. The first is that you've now you know, taken selectable and editable text and taken a picture of it, and so now it is just pixels in the shape of words, and so it's no longer searchable. I can't highlight this, they can't copy and paste it, and for that reason it's not going to be found by search engines either. The other thing is that when you take a picture of text, it becomes slightly compressed. There's a slight haziness or quality to it. Certainly it looks great, you know, because you've been able to format it in another environment and just to take a picture of that. But I super encourage you to explore how you can do that within Wix itself. It is definitely possible. Next up, we're going to go to locations, and we have the same issue, right? So this is a picture of words now, and it's slightly less readable, and it's not going to be able to be indexed by search engines. So certainly all of this content needs to be taken and actually entered into the website, not just a picture of those words. You might also consider using some maps here. Last but not least, we've got the blog, and so here it looks as if you've added a couple. I would say that this yellow button is bright and cheery, but the white text on top of it is a little hard to read. You can see as I'm hovering over here, the read more is so much more apparent with that gray colored text. I'm going to go ahead and select one of these to see what happens. It's going to take me to kind of the full feature. We've got a little bit of a formatting issue, the way that this area is kind of pushed up into your navigation. And then again, what we're seeing is that we just have pretty much a copied and paste version of the information that was provided to you. As the web strategist on this project, you are invited to streamline this text to make it more palatable, more quickly to scan, and to take out the fluff and leave what's most important for a very busy user to know what they need to know with this particular post or chunk of content. Let's see here. That's it, because I've gone through each of these pages. But so as we move forward, you guys, week 4, you have the revisions of this site. And certainly you've been provided a lot of feedback here in this video. But very importantly, taking a look at what your classmates or your cohort members have done to help inform, the choices that you've made. You've seen what works, what doesn't work, what could be better. Use that information excuse me, to push your site into its next best place. I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to the keynote here and just move forward to say, heads up, what do we have going on this week? You already did your Diigo exploration. Hopefully you were able to find a few resources to help you with that portfolio site you're building this week. So in a sense, you want to be taking what you have learned on the Real Deal Taco scenario and to be applying it into this portfolio site that you've created. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, and that's because someone hasn't given you a folder full of stuff and asked you to plug and play it into a website. You are responsible for developing your own content and your own styles for this. For that reason, you'll likely find that you're going to need more time to work on this project. That being said, I want to ease any anxiety or fears because you will work on the site again next month in Portfolio 3. So really this is just to get you a good starting place to continue to work with that next month. In the middle of the week, you have your portfolio inspiration. Now, this is an activity that very closely mirrors the competitor research assignment that you did in week 1. You're going to take a look at 3 portfolio sites of industry professionals, people whose careers you would like to emulate or that you are inspired by. So you can take a look at how their portfolios have been put together. The deliverable is a 3-minute video review. Try to keep your commentary concise, work from a script, and make sure that the information that you're sharing there is what is most inspirational to you. Like, what do you like? What do you don't like? How are you going to use what you see on that site to help make yours better? And then last but not least, Sunday, you've got your portfolio skeleton due. So if you guys have any questions about anything that you have heard here, please hit me up in FSO, and I am definitely available to help you guys as you move forward with this week's activities.